Well, hey now, welcome to Fitz's Electric Bar. Been a little while since I've done a video, and I've been inspired by a video. I don't know if it's officially a thread, but Chris over at The Long Cut did a really good video about the 10 records he listens to most, and they're not necessarily, as he says, what he would consider to be his top records of all time, but they just simply are the records that he plays and plays most often. And Mazzy followed up with his version, and I am now picking up the gauntlet, as they say, and doing it for me too, with a few thoughts on this, because it is really interesting. If something is your favorite record by an artist, or the one or two top favorite albums by an artist, would those not be the albums you'd be playing most often? And not necessarily, because sometimes the stuff that you really, really like isn't necessarily, you're not always in the mood for that music. And on top of that, I'm kind of reminded a little bit of when they do ratings for TV shows and they get people to say what it is that they watch. People tend to say that they watch more highbrow stuff than what they actually watch. So they might be claiming to be watching BBC or NPR or whatever. And in reality, they're watching, fun sitcoms, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we do tend to intellectualize, I think, about why an album is so great, why it seems to resonate for us, or something special about it. But, are we listening to it as much as other albums by that artist? So, without further ado, I'm going to choose this one. So, I don't think most people would call this Don't Tell a Soul the Replacements as their best album. Often they'll go to the earlier stuff. Could be Let It Be, could be Tim, could be Pleased to Meet Me. Some of the earlier stuff, if you're inclined towards the sort of really sloppy and fun kind of stuff. But Don't Tell a Soul is a record that I enjoy putting on more than any other Replacements record. I love Tim. I love Don't Tell a Soul, or sorry, Pleased to Meet Me. But this one in particular, I just love. And one of the things I wonder is that, if it's got a really good lead-off track. I'm not saying that the lead-off track here, Talent Show, is so spectacular. But quite often when I look at these records, the first song is a song that is very pleasant and enjoyable to listen to. And it's a kickoff to the whole album. But the idea of this, or at least my interpretation, is that these are go-to albums, the ones that we just go to most often. So they aren't necessarily the extreme albums, the ones that are most challenging, the ones that are maybe most energetic or whatever, but these are the ones that we just enjoy putting on when we feel like, I need to put on a record and can't figure out what else there is to play. We go back to these records. So I love Don't Tell a Soul. It was the first, I think it was the first full album with Slim Dunlap and without any of Bob Stinson's involvement after his passing. But I really like this record. I think it's great. So that's number one. So I'm going to do 10 plus 1. I might even have 10 plus 2. I'm really getting away with murder. We'll see. Bob Dylan. Many people would not call Street Legal his best, or even his top 10 or top 20. Production's kind of like not great. But starting with Changing of the Guards, just think it's a lovely song, just a great, great tune. New Pony is kind of pretty weak. But Baby Stop Crying, Is Your Love in Vain? Jerry Garcia covered that quite often. Great. Signore also covered that as well. Actually, he covered Signor. I don't know if he covered Is Your Love in Vain, but that's a really good song. And then Where Are You Tonight? Journey Through Dark Heat. Fantastic. I believe that song, Where Are You Tonight, contains the immortal lines, if you don't believe there's a price for this sweet paradise, remind me to show you the scars. This is one of the first jazz records I ever got into. And really the tone on this record, the sound, the warmth, you're just completely immersed in the Village Vanguard and the sounds of clinking glasses, the warm sound of Scott LaFaro's bass, the beautiful, playing of Bill Evans. Just a remarkable record, and one of the ones that helped move me into jazz music and being open to jazz music. When I heard this, my friend, kind of pulled out some key jazz releases, and this was one that just really I just loved. I've put this up as one of my rainy day mixes, Sunday mixes, and anytime I just want to create a warm mood, it's Sunday at the Village Vanguard, Bill Evans. So we got 3 down, 7 or 8 to go. Recently, I believe Todd at Lost Mixtapes did his full ranking of the Neil Young discography, which good on him. That is no easy task. Top 10 would be tough, but to do the 40 some odd and keeping track of archival releases and the chronology thereof, very complicated. Anyways, On the Beach. It is, for me, my favorite Neil Young record, but also my consistent go-to record. Just one that I find that I can put on and have in the background, but it is also lyrically tremendous foreground music. There are just so many lines in this album that are so raw, so direct, and so revealing that I just, they really stick with me. I love this record, On the Beach. Neil Young. I think if anybody chose this album as the best Rolling Stones record ever, it's a fight between, Exile on Main Street, Sticky Fingers, Let It Bleed, Beggar's Banquet, but nobody would put this at number 1. But I love this record, and I guess partly it takes me back to a time. I think this was the first Rolling Stones record that I ever got into. And I love the feeling of it, with Billy Preston on keyboards. There's some tremendous funky stuff on this record. Dancing with Mr. D, I think is a great opener. 100 Years Ago has just got such a great funk groove to it. Do Heartbreaker is great. I don't need to hear Angie again. I think we've all heard that enough. Silver Train, I think, has got a real nice feel to it. Winter, I just think that's one of the great Stones ballads, Winter. So, and Star Star, again, I don't necessarily need to hear that, but I remember just thinking that was the greatest song, Starfucker. So this is my go-to Rolling Stones record. This in black and blue, but this would be the first one, because you're not always in the mood for Exile on Main Street or Gimme Shelter. Another one of my top listened to records is David Sylvian, Secrets of the Beehive. I first got into David Sylvian I wasn't a huge Japan fan, and I really enjoyed Gone to Earth. I thought it was a lovely ambient record. To be honest, I'd kind of go to bed stoned and put on Gone to Earth, and I'd be gone to sleep and just drifting off into dreamland. I really enjoyed that, but this is the one that I go back to over and over and over again. Again, the first track, September, just really atmospheric, lovely, and just a wonderful record. David Sylvian, Secrets of the Beehive. Another kind of ambient gem is this one from Talk Talk, Laughingstock. You could kind of, the two albums, Spirit of Eden and Laughingstock, really go hand in hand. Either one could be the one I would choose, but these are records I go back to over and over and over again. Now, some of the albums, like some of the songs on this, have moments that are quite jarring, but mostly it just creates an atmosphere and it runs all the way through, and just, lovely musicianship. So Talk Talk, Laughingstock on my top 10 albums that I listen to most. Back to the jazz category. So I think around the same time that I was getting into Bill Evans and being turned on to jazz in general in the early 90s, a friend was also getting me into Chet Baker, and listening to Chet Baker, I think at that time, Let's Get Lost had just come out as well. The documentary that was done by, and the filmmaker's name is escaping me, Bruce Weber, I guess. And his late career, kind of this kind of amazing black and white film of Chet Baker towards the end of his, not just career, but his life, was very moving for me. And I loved the soundtrack to that. Talked about that before, and his cover of Almost Blue. and he played trumpet on Elvis Costello's Shipbuilding, I believe, as well. Anyways, this is just a killer record, and this is a fairly recent reissue, and a very romantic record, a very beautiful tone. Yeah, just gorgeous record, unbroken mood throughout. Chet, it's just wonderful. I listen to this record all the time. Now we go to another artist that, I've got virtually everything he ever did. And once again, I don't think I would put this up among his, top 5 even of his best records. But this is the one that I always seem to want to put on. Opening with the title track, Young Americans. It's just one of those records that makes me happy. It's just got a lovely feel to it. It's also got Fascination, which is fine. But Right, I really enjoy that song, Right. Somebody Up There Likes Me. Not a big fan of Across the Universe. But this is just a really nice, this is what they call his Philly soul period. And really enjoy this record, David Bowie, Young Americans. Another record that is, I guess, about 7 years old now. I couldn't believe it's actually been that long since this album has come out. But I've listened to this. I listened to this record. I would hazard to guess that this might be the record I've listened to the most over the last 7 years since this was released. I love it. And for those of you that are not Grateful Dead fans, I would say, don't worry, I would still listen to this. This is supposed to be music that was influenced by Bob Weir's time in California, like cowboy country, like the people who worked the ranches and the songs from that era. And the music is wonderful. They've got some of the guys from the National on it, the Dessner brothers, and others. It's a warm record. It's just a beautiful cinematic, wonderful production, and outstanding from beginning to end. So I really, really like this record. Blue Mountain, Bob Weir. And on my last one, you've seen me mention many times, but when I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, I want to put something on that's just not too in your face, beautiful backdrop, you can drift into listening and having it as wallpaper, and that's Durutti Column. I've talked a lot about Durutti Column, the return of the Durutti Column, but this particular record, you can see from the ringwear, is a favorite of mine and played over and over again. So these are my top, I think 11 records, I believe, 10 plus 1. I encourage you guys to do this as well. It's a really cool exercise when you really try to be as honest as you can about the music that you really like to listen to over and over again, and just those go-to albums that provide you, great joy and enjoyment over and over again. So, Carpe Diem, MFs. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.